Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast number 348. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the morning of Sunday, February the 4th, from the James Strong Studio in Western St. Charles County. Did you miss me last weekend? No podcast last weekend. In fact, the trophy wife and I were on holiday in the beautiful territory of Puerto Rico, where the worst day we had was a little bit of rain. I'm talking 10 minutes of rain. And it only got up to 82 degrees that day. So, so no complaints. I will tell you, I thought about doing a podcast from Puerto Rico, but to be quite honest, I thought about it for about 10 seconds and then thought, I'm not doing that. I love you, dear listeners, but I was having too much of a good time. So I'm back, tanned, rested, and ready for another podcast. In fact, the title of today's podcast is The Annexation of Puerto Rico, which in the era of fake news, I guess I'm going to join in with the crowd because it has nothing to do with the annexation of Puerto Rico. The only reason we're going to talk about the vacation that I had and the things that I did, why I did them, some of the problems I ran into, and just my very biased opinion as to how to book a vacation. There's 100 ways to do it. There's 100 ways. If you take 100 people and say, hey, how do you book a vacation? You're going to get 100 people that are going to have 100 opinions. Okay. Mine differs from most, and I will say that it works best for me, all right? So that doesn't mean it works best for you, but it certainly works best for me. A lot of that has to do with where you want to go, how often you go, what you're looking to achieve when you go, how much money you have to spend when you go, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So part of this podcast, we're going to talk about Puerto Rico, the pros and cons of Puerto Rico, the nice things, the not so nice things, the advantages to being there, the disadvantages to going there, and how to travel there, and actually how to travel to anywhere that you want to go. While I won't say that I'm an expert, I will say that I travel probably 25 times a year, maybe more than that, half the time. So I know a little bit about it. We're going to talk about that in today's podcast, today's essay, The Annexation of Puerto Rico. Before we do that, a little bit of flag waving for the USA. Couple of things going on here, and kind of the topic that I've been either going with or at least opening up the podcast with is the freedoms that we have and how well we have it in this country. And people don't realize it. They really don't. If you turn on the news, if you look on social media, God help you if you do, it's a cesspool. It's never been great, but it's gotten even worse. You would think we live in Cuba, okay? We don't. We live in the best place in the world when it comes to freedom. And to back that up, all you have to do is look on social media, look on the television, listen to the radio, and listen to the dribble that people are spouting. And it's just, at worst, it's a lie. At best, it's misinformed opinions, okay? And I could use a million different examples, and I don't think I have to use any because I think each and every one of you listening to this podcast know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's just not from the right. It's just not from the left. It's from everybody with an agenda. And I will tell you that 95% of all people on all media sources, that's just not social media. I'm talking about radio, television, podcasts, cable, you name it, they have an agenda. Do I have an agenda? Maybe. Probably. I don't think I do. You may think I do. I try my best to give both sides. And I also will tell you, dear listener, when it's an opinion and a fact, okay? It's okay to have opinions, but you can't mask them as facts. When you do that, you mislead and you're dishonest, okay? But I've always said we have it best in the West, and we do. But of all and the United States is the best of the best when it comes to freedom. The West is the best, but the U.S. is the best of the West. Say that's 5 times fast. 3 examples that I have. Actually, 2 examples, and then one how we're going the wrong way, but not so much. You may have read about the economy in China is just going to pot. For years, they've had double-digit growth every year. And when you think about double-digit growth in an economy, what you need to consider is the United States is doing cartwheels because our economy grew at 3.5% in 2023. Okay, 3.5%. In China, it was 12, 15, 19, 22% every single year. Now, there was no doubt that their economy was growing and improving, okay? But what most economists said, yeah, they pad their numbers, and you can probably take about 8% off of that. But if you take 8% off of 22%, friends, it's still very impressive growth. That has stopped. China has big time problems. Their economy was driven by their real estate market, and their real estate market, to say it's collapsed is being kind. Evergrande went bankrupt. The biggest real estate company in the world, not just in China, in the world, just went bankrupt, okay? The rest of them are not far behind. And what that's done is millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of Chinese and other people have their life savings just gone. I mean, for example, somebody in China may have said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pay Evergrande. I'm going to buy a house from Evergrande. Well, what you have to do basically is put the money up front for Evergrande, like 50%, okay? So if a house costs you, I'll use round figures, $100,000, you've got to give them $50,000, and then they'll build your house. Well, what happened was they had to borrow the $50,000, give it to Evergrande. Now Evergrande says, sorry, we're not going to build your house because we're bankrupt. So now these average people have a mortgage and no place to live. That's some of the problems that's going on in China. Now, President Xi, dictator Xi, who is not a freely elected leader of his country, he's just going to run the show until he dies. If you don't like it, he'll kill you or throw you in prison. That's a fact. The criticisms of the Chinese economy have all but disappeared from Chinese social media and the news. Why? Because Xi said you can no longer talk bad about the economy. That's the new rule. Can't do it. Not on the radio, not on television, not on social media. So the bad stories about the Chinese economy have disappeared. You can't talk about it. It's against the law. And you think we have restrictions in this country. There's another country that I want to talk about. And this particular country, they've got a guy who's a clinical psychologist. He's saying some things that the clinical psychologist board, that's not their name, but that's their what they are, okay? They don't like what he's saying, and so they're going to pull his license unless he goes to a re-education camp. So where are we talking about? China? No. Russia? No. North Korea? No. Iran? No. How about Canada? Yeah. You've heard of Jordan Peterson, right? I've heard of him. I like the guy. He's a clinical psychologist in Canada, and he's basically, he's a clinical psychologist officially, but he's not seen a patient since 2017. Okay, so he's going on his 7th year without seeing patients, but he doesn't need to. He's got 5 million followers on X. He's got an active podcast. He's got television shows, or I shouldn't say television, YouTube videos. He's on the lecture circuit. He doesn't need to see patients. He's just fine. Who is Jordan Peterson? What are his politics? He's got his own name. I consider him a liberal conservative. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm talking about liberal, the old term of liberal. Liberal meaning open-minded, open to new thoughts. Let's do things a little bit differently because it's not working this way. That's the old definition of liberal, okay? Not leftist, just different, open to change. And his views, his politics tend to be conservative as well. So he's a conservative who's open to doing things differently than your standard everyday conservative, okay? He's the College of Psychologists of Ontario. That's the name of the organization. They find Peterson's opinions objectionable. They don't like his, and I will quote, this is the quotation that they used. They don't like his manner of tone. Now, if that's not a constructive charge, they don't exist. Okay. The College of Psychologists of Ontario say that public statements that Peterson has made are demeaning, degrading, and unprofessional. Now, two that they bring up, gender. Peterson will say, look, there's two genders. There's men, there's women, and that has to do with the chromosomes that you have. Yes, occasionally there's some born that are iffy, but that's so rare, it's not even funny. The whole gender reassociation. I'm a man that was born with a penis and I want to be called a woman. He says it's silly and it's ridiculous. If you want to do it in some type of a role play, that's fine. But if you're born a man, you're a man. If you're a man, you can't compete in women's sports. If you're a man, you can't use the women's bathroom. That's one of his opinions. The other opinion, and it was almost worse because it was an opinion and it was hurtful, or had the potential to be hurtful. And it had to do with a couple of years ago, they had a Sports Illustrated athlete on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and it was the swimsuit edition. And I'll just be honest, she was fat. Okay. And Peterson basically said, look, she's fat. She's not attractive. Now, was that a kind thing to say? No. But it was his opinion. And this College of Psychologists of Ontario said, why, you can't say that about people. You can't say fat people are unattractive. He said, I think they are. Why can't I say that? He said, because it might hurt somebody's feelings. He said, well, then they'll have to get over it. Those are the two main reasons why the College of Psychologists of Ontario want to pull Jordan Peterson's practicing license unless he attends, again, this is their term, unless he attends a re-education camp of his choosing from a list they provide, of course. Friends, this is Canada, okay? They don't like the manner of tone of this guy. So unless he enters a re-education camp, they're threatening to pull his license. Nothing like that happens in the U.S. We have bizarre things happening here, and I'll talk about one in just a moment, but they're nothing like this. What we do have is misguided politicians who decide they want to go ahead and imposture themselves in a way to get votes rather than actually solve the multitude of problems that we have in this country. And it involves the U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, okay? The House will vote sometime this week to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas, the U.S. Homeland Security Secretary. Is it high crimes and misdemeanors? Is that what they're charging him with? No. Are they charging him with taking bribes? No. They're charging him with dereliction of duty, which is about as gray as you're going to get. Okay. Now, the House Republicans are misguided. And by the way, this is never going to happen. Now, they may impeach him. Now, but what you have to understand about what is impeached. Impeached means the House of Representatives have voted to impeach you. That's it. You're not removed from office. You're not censured. You're not taken. Money is not taken from you. You continue to do your job. Because the House votes to impeach, the Senate votes to remove. And the Senate will never vote to remove Mr. Mayorkas. Now, here's why they're misguided. They don't like Mayorkas because they don't like his politics. Oh, and by the way, neither do I. I think he's not doing nearly enough to secure the border, but he's done nothing illegal. He's taken a laissez-faire attitude about closing the border, but then he was appointed by Joe Biden, who won election, no matter what Donald Trump says. He's the president, and he appoints the Homeland Secretary. And he did, or U.S. Homeland Security Secretary, and he did. Just because you don't like Mr. Mayorkas' politics is no reason to impeach him, because he's done nothing wrong. Is he doing what I think is the best thing? No. Is he doing anything illegal? No. Is there any dereliction of duty? No. But there's a good chance, because the House does have more Republicans than Democrats, that they will vote to impeach Mayorkas. But again, they won't remove, it won't mean he's removed from office. The Senate will never vote to remove. He won't be censured. He won't have money taken from him. None of that's going to happen. It's just posturing. So that when these guys run for office, they go, I voted to impeach Mayorkas. Vote for me. We've got so many problems in this country. Why don't they work to solve the problems instead of posturing so they can just be reelected to their dopey jobs? That's about as close as we get, okay, to having a dictatorship. In other words, it's nothing. Nobody's hurt. Nobody's fired. Mayorkas will do nothing different because of these impeachment proceedings. Absolutely nothing different, nor should he. Oh, and by the way, I'm not the only one who thinks this is silly. Wall Street Journal had an article by Michael Chernoff, who was Homeland Security Secretary from 2005 to 2009 under George W. Bush, who's no liberal, okay? He even says, look, Mayorkas has done nothing wrong, okay? You remember Chernoff. He, a tall, skinny guy, bald-headed. In fact, they nicknamed him Skeletor because that's kind of what he looked like. But he was a pretty good Homeland Security Secretary, and he was a Republican. And he says Mayorkas has done nothing wrong, okay? That's about as bad as we get. We don't have the dictator of the country saying you can't say anything wrong about our economy. You don't have a College of Psychologists of Ontario saying we're going to pull your clinical psychologist license unless you go through a re-education camp of your choosing. The worst we do is a handful of dopes in Congress want to spank the bottom of some guy who they don't like so they can look good when they run for office in the fall. So there you have it. Case number 27 and a half as to why we have it better than anybody else in the world. Okay, on to today's essay, the annexation of Puerto Rico, which has nothing to do with the annexation of Puerto Rico. Why did I even choose that name then? You're just thinking, Strong, why did you choose a name for a podcast that has nothing to do with the podcast? Well, it's got Puerto Rico in it, so it kind of has something to do with it. Back in the 80s, 90s, I guess it was the 90s, there was a movie called Little Giants. And it was a kid's movie. My kids watched that 17 times, okay, maybe 117 times. But it was about Little League football and a bad team who got the couple of people, and the kids all got together and they started winning games. And they had a little boy who was not a good football player, but he was like a statistician, okay? And he was he thought up the plays for the trick plays for the team so they could win their game. And one of the trick plays was called the annexation of Puerto Rico. That was just his code name for the play. And of course, the underdogs won and had a good happy ending and everything was great. But we did go to Puerto Rico last week. In fact, that's why I didn't do a podcast. We were in sunny and the coldest day was 82 degrees. Okay. And it rained for 10 minutes. That was the horrible weather day, which wasn't horrible at all. Actually, I was on a walk and to scout out the walking path to a church we were going to the next day to attend Mass. And it rained. I jumped underneath the gas station cover, and it was fine. I just stood there for 10 minutes, and then I came home or went scouting out the church, and I came back to the hotel. But it was wonderful. Started out maybe not so much. A few days before we took off, I was notified by Southwest Airlines that they'd changed our flight. They'd canceled it, but that's okay. We rebooked you. So instead of leaving at 9 o'clock in the morning and getting there at 6:30 at night, we were going to leave at 6 o'clock in the morning and get there at 9:50 at night. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. So I called them and I fixed the flight. How did I fix it? Or did I call up and scream and yell and holler? How dare you do this to me? Don't you know who I am? You people suck. Blah, blah. No. I called up and said, hey, I've had a change of flight. I've gone on your website and you've given me this one, but I'd really like that one instead. Can you work with me? And she said, of course. It gave me everything that I asked for. Actually, we left. We had to leave about the same time. We got there about a half an hour later than we normally would have, or than we would have. But that meant we had a 2-hour layover in Tampa, which was a whole lot better than an hour and a half layover in Baltimore. Okay. less time in the air too. On the way back, we actually left a little bit later and got back at the same time because we had a very tight connecting flight or connection in Fort Lauderdale. But it worked out for the best. So again, if the airline changes your flight, don't lose your mind. Go on their website, look at the alternatives, and when you call, don't just say, do something for me. I refuse to accept this, or this is unacceptable, or let me talk to your supervisor. No, just be nice. Do some homework. Say, hey, look, I had this flight. You canceled it. You gave me this, but I'd rather have that. That way you make it real easy for her. Sure, there's seats available. Let me switch it. Click, 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 click. Done. So a potential disaster had a happy ending. And maybe the best thing about this is we were never going to connect in Tampa. But we had a 2-hour layover. It was by that time around lunchtime, so we were hungry. So we got a bite to eat in a restaurant, a bar in Tampa, the Tampa airport. Okay, and I had a grouper sandwich there. And friends, this was just an airport bar, but I'm here to tell you that grouper sandwich was amazing. It was one of the best grouper sandwiches I had ever had, ever, and that includes on the beach in Destin, Florida, where grouper are all over the place. So it really had a happy ending. It was fantastic. In fact, that was one of my best meals of the trip, believe it or not. One of my worst meals of the trip was on the way back in the San Juan airport. I had a Cuban sandwich, which was awful, just terrible. I had a Cuban sandwich. My wife had hamburger and fries, okay? Both of us were chewing something, had to spit something out because we couldn't chew it. The best we could figure, this was some type of a wrapper from the meat that they didn't take off. At least that's what we were hoping that it was. And we just kind of convinced ourselves that really was what it was, because it could have been something a whole lot worse. We don't know. But no drinks. We just had tap water, but a sandwich and hamburgers and fries. What do you think that meant? They were horrible food, awful food, almost unedible food, but we were hungry. It was $45. So we had one of the best meals we had in an airport and one of the worst meals we had in an airport. But, that's what you get. That's what you get sometimes. Our MO has always been take an Uber from the airport to the hotel. Tried to do that this time, but they kept canceling on me. So-and-so is going to pick you up. Nope, they've canceled. So-and-so's, Jose is going to pick you up. No, he's canceled. Carmine is going to pick you up. No, he's canceled. Juan is going to pick you up. No, he canceled. Up comes a taxi. Hey, can I take you to where you need to go? I said, sure. I said, how much do you charge? He said, what was your Uber going to charge? I said, $32. He said, I'll do it. Canceled the Uber. Went for a ride. Except for Uber never canceled my trip. I even messaged the person who was supposed to be coming to pick me up. So she saw the message and they didn't cancel it. But that's okay. You just call them and make a complaint, right? No, there's no way to call them. But you can go to the website, which wasn't working. So I got to pay for that trip twice. Now I'm going through my credit card company. I'm going to attempt to have it taken off because I don't want to pay $32 twice, once to the taxi company that actually took me there and once to Uber that never did take me there. But you know what? Stuff's going to happen. And I wasn't even to the hotel and I was already steaming because somebody had done something dishonest. And when people make a mistake, I don't get upset, okay? When people are dishonest and steal from me, I get upset. And in my opinion, that's what Uber did to me. But I wasn't going to let it ruin my vacation because, you know what, I'm on vacation. Where did we stay this time? Because we went to Puerto Rico last year, if you remember. This time we stayed at the Caribe Hilton, the first hotel built by Hilton in the late 1940s outside of the continental United States. That's right. So it's an old hotel, but it's been rehabbed many times. Most recently, in 2017, when that hurricane hit, it took them 2 years to reopen that thing. Okay, it was very nice. It still needed some updates, but like carpet and that type of thing. But that's what you're going to get in the tropics. Okay, things get old quickly in the tropics. But it's a historic hotel. Like I said, the first Hilton built outside of the continental United States. And it was the birthplace of the pina colada. Yeah, that's where they invented it. So, of course, we had a pina colada. We had several. They were pretty good, some better than others. They had free pina colada testing out at the bar at the pool. I watched how they made it. They took a mix, poured it into a blender, threw ice in there, blended it up, and poured it into a cup. And it wasn't bad, but I mean, when you have a mix that's sweet and fatty from the coconut oil, it's not going to be bad. It didn't taste horrible, but it wasn't a pina colada. Now, at the indoor bar, the famous, I think they call it the Caribe bar, where they have the famous Caribe steps where all the big Hollywood people used to go and they'd walk down the stairs. They have their photo ops there. You walk down these stairs into the bar. We had a pina colada that was made the right way. In other words, sure, they put in the cocoa cream or cocoa liqueur, whatever it is, cream to cocoa, I forget what it's called. That's the big mix. And then fresh pineapple juice. And then they put in the rum, they put in all the other things, and they mixed it up. They made it fresh. They didn't just pour it out of a bottle and say, here it is. But it was very good. I mean, when you go to the place that invents a drink, you probably have to have the drink that they invented, right? Sure. Second year in a row, we've been to Puerto Rico. Is it better than last year? Probably. Yeah, I think it was. The last time we didn't stay in San Juan proper. This time we did. The last time we stayed in Isla Verde, which is really just about 5 miles east of San Juan, but in more of a residential area, less going on, but quieter, farther from the beach. It was like a three block walk to the beach where we stayed last time, but quieter. But the Caribe Hilton's right on the beach, so you walk out of the hotel and you walk onto the beach. It's wonderful. Plus, they had a better pool there, so everything about this hotel was better. Quieter also means not as many restaurant options. So the beach, the pool, full of iguanas. You go to Puerto Rico and you're going to get iguanas. And I'm not talking about iguanas that are just 6 inches or 1 foot or 2 feet long. I'm talking about 3 foot long lizards, okay? And they'll walk right up to the pool. They have no fear of man because nobody hurts them. Nobody hurts them. It's funny. It's just part of the deal, part of the ambiance of the tropical islands. Lots of good restaurants. So many good restaurants in this part of San Juan that we went to. Went to a restaurant called Cayo Blanco where we shared a paella dish. It's Puerto Rican paella, which is a little bit different from Spanish paella. Mainly, I think the rice is a little less soupy, less tomato. Okay, but it was seafood paella. So we had there was mahi, there were mussels, there were clams, there were shrimp, 2 types of shrimp, in fact, freshwater and seawater. They had calamari. It was just wonderful. A big monstrous plate of food that we killed it. And we had a side of tostones, which are smashed deep-fried plantains. Went to another bar and restaurant. It was actually a restaurant called the Havana Bar and Grill. But it wasn't a bar. I mean, they had a bar there, but we ate in the restaurant where you could just watch the waves crash against the rocks. And in fact, we liked it so much, we went there twice. The first time, I had a fish dish, a fish called, I keep saying skate, but it wasn't skate. It was, I can't think of the name of the fish. It's a fish that you can't catch commercially in the Gulf, okay? because it's endangered, kind of. But you can catch it and eat it yourself, but you can't sell it. Well, Puerto Rico's not in the Gulf. It's in the North Atlantic. So they caught it and they served it. And it was wonderful. They served it in like a creamy tomato base with other pieces of seafood. It was fantastic. Went back there again the last night we were there and had a dish called, it was another mofongo dish, a dish called mofongo, which is a smashed fried plantain, but not like a tostoni. And then over the top, they put like a seafood mix. And it was simply fantastic. And they had tropical drinks there, so we had one of those at dinner. Ate at a restaurant called, what else? Actually, we had two restaurants in the hotel. A restaurant called Mofongo, where I had a Cuban sandwich, which was pretty good. And we also ate at an Italian restaurant. I'm sorry, not an Italian restaurant. It was a seafood restaurant called Lola's, where I had chicken mofongo. The only time I ate a meal outside of the Cuban sandwich where I didn't have seafood. Okay. And it was pretty good for hotel food. It was good, and it wasn't too terribly expensive. A lot of times these hotels, they give you something that's, the food is okay, the price is stupid expensive. This place was not. It was very good, reasonably priced. I will tell you that the one night that we had the mofongo at Lola's, there could have been more food, but it was late at night, so I'm kind of glad there wasn't more food because I may not have slept better or may not have slept well. I would have had too much to eat. But it was wonderful, okay? Vacation can be expensive, so we love to have happy hour when we're on vacation. And instead of spending $15 on pina coladas, I went across the street to a convenience store and I bought bags of Tostones and 6 packs of beer. So instead of paying $8 a piece for beer, I paid $6 a 6-pack for beer. So we had beer and Tostones or for happy hour. A whole lot cheaper than going to the bar. Save $1. Why not? The highlight of going to Puerto Rico, of course, is the weather. The weather is just fantastic there. If you go in the wintertime, you're guaranteed to have good weather. You're just going to have good weather. It's the dry season. It's going to rain, probably, like it does in the tropics, but it doesn't rain for long and it doesn't ruin your day. And even if you get caught up in the rain, it's in the 80s, okay? It's not going to be bad. I got caught in the rain. I got wet. But it didn't matter because it was in the 80s. Most of the days were sunny, at least mostly sunny or partly sunny, with a nice breeze, and it was fantastic. It really was. It was a great vacation. Will I go again? I'd like to, but the trophy wife wants to try someplace different next year. It's going to be warm. It has to be warm. We used to go to Southern California or to Miami. One time we went to Bahamas. But I'm here to tell you, folks, you're not guaranteed warm weather if you go to any of those places. In fact, one time we took the family to Bahamas. It was a high of 62 with lots of wind. And folks, that's cold, okay? There was no swimming done on that vacation. So that's the Bahamas, just south of Florida. So south of Miami. So actually south, is it south or is it just east? I don't know. It's on about the same latitude as Miami. But you go far enough south, like the Puerto Rico, you're guaranteed to get weather, and that's good weather, and that's why we go, to get the good weather. Now, if you're going to travel someplace from mid-America where you're guaranteed it's going to be warm, you're probably not going to be driving, okay? You're probably going to be flying. And to fly and then to stay in a hotel, then sometimes to rent a car if you need to do that. We don't, but sometimes you have to. There's ways to travel. And everybody has their own way to travel, okay? Some people like to use the credit card websites because some people fall in love with their credit cards. If you book everything on the credit card website, you're going to get the credit card points. That can work out very well. Or it cannot work out very well. Case in point, if you book everything on one site, be it the credit card website or the airline website where it lets you rent a car and rent a hotel, or the hotel website where sometimes they let you rent a car in a hotel. You get, or the credit card website. It's one-stop shopping. It's a whole lot easier, but it's not what you want to do, in my opinion. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, there's 100 different people that could be interviewed. How do you book your travel? And you may get 100 different opinions. What I'm going to give you is my opinion, what's worked best for me. It may or may not work best for you. It just depends on where you go, how often you do, how savvy you are, how much time you want to spend, how much money you want to spend. But I'm going to tell you the way I do it and the way that works best for me. You can use a one-stop shopping place like Travelocity. And actually, sometimes Travelocity will actually give you a better rate than the airline, believe it or not. You think, well, how can they do that? How can a trip on American Airlines on Travelocity be $1,000, and on American Airlines it's $1,050? Because of the restrictions. Because when you buy that airline ticket, you pay for it now, and if you don't use it, you're SOL. That's how those sites work. That's how they get the extra money. Because they actually sell them at a loss, with the understanding that if they sell 100 of them, one or two of them are going to cancel and just lose their money. So when the smoke clears, they've made more money than if they sold it for $1 or $2 profit. Okay, that's how they work. I like to go to the site of the service. In other words, the airline website, the hotel website, the rental car website, and rent everything from the website. Why do I do that? Because you're guaranteed, if you don't get the best price, you're going to be within a rounding error of the best price, okay? But most important is you have more freedom if things change and you have to make an adjustment. Case in point, the Puerto Rico trip. I told you the first part of this podcast, or the first part of this part of the essay, that I had problems with the flights. They changed them on me. And this was going to mean we were going to be 14 hours to get to Puerto Rico instead of, it ended up taking us 8.5, 9.5, but 14 hours. And we would have lost the full first day. We wouldn't have got to the hotel till after 10 o'clock at night. The first day's gone. Okay. Had I booked it on Travelocity, sorry, that's what you get. Next. But I booked it on Southwest website. And they worked with me and gave me something actually a little bit better than I had before. All right. Same thing with the hotel website. Same thing with rental car websites. And actually, I like to use the app. I think to yourself, well, you can't get all the apps. Well, you can, but you don't have to. And you just don't book on the app because you may want to research prices. In other words, if you're going someplace, you may not want to fly Southwest. You might want to fly American or Delta or Spirit or Allegiant or somebody else. So do your experiment or your fact finding on your computer. Okay. Then when you found out where you want to go, chances are you're going to be able to use the hotel chain or the rental car company or the airline that you want to use, that you like to use, that you're comfortable with. Okay. There may be a $10 difference in the flight. So what? In fact, I found sometimes American Airlines is a bit cheaper than Southwest Airlines. Okay, but American charges you $50 to bring on a bag, so it's not cheaper. All right, Southwest lets you bring 2 bags on free. When you've determined who you want to book with those individual companies. I like to use an app. You don't have to use an app, but if you book with the direct company, you're going to get probably the best price and definitely the best service because you booked through them. Now, use your credit card and get the points, of course. But you're penny wise and pound foolish, in my opinion, if you use a one-stop shopping website, especially the credit card websites. Because while you may get an extra 100, 200, 300, 500 points on your credit card, I've done that before. I've booked rental cars through the airline company. And then I never got the points for it. So I called the airline and said, look, I rented this from you 3 months ago. You never gave me the points. Well, wait another month or two. Sometimes it takes a while for us to post those points. Okay, it's been 3 months already. Yeah, wait another month or two. So I call back again 5 months later. They say, yeah, well, you need to call the rental car company on that because that's kind of their responsibility to give you the points. Okay, so I call the rental car company. Nah, you booked through Southwest. You didn't book through us. So you need to call them back and find out. Okay. In other words, nobody wants to give you the points. So you saved $1, you got no points. You saved 5 minutes of your time is all you saved. Okay. Take my advice. Book through the airline you're going to use. Book through the hotel you're going to use. Book through the rental car company you're going to use. You're not going to spend any more money. If you do, it's a rounding error. And most important, you're going to get the service that you need if things go awry or you need to make changes, okay? That's how things work out for the best for me. And like I've said before, the goal in my life is to go on a vacation of a lifetime 3 times a year. We're just at February 4th, and number 1 is done. Number 2 is already booked, I think. I mean, it's definitely booked. The trophy wife is actually going to go with me to Death Valley in April. If it's open, because they're supposed to have 2 inches of rain in the desert Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. You think to yourself, well, 2 inches of rain in the desert, that's nothing compared to what they're getting in L.A. That's true. But they're getting 2 inches of rain in 2 days. They normally get 1.5 inches of rain a year, okay? So if this is that much of a big deal for them and they have more road washouts, Death Valley may be closed for the foreseeable future. Cross your fingers for me, please, dear listeners, because I want to take vacation number 2 of a lifetime in April. Haven't got 3 planned, but it's not summertime yet. So that's it. I'm done. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. JamesStrongShow@hotmail.com is the email address. Send me your email address. I'd love to listen to you or read your correspondence. I do answer all my emails. Those of you who email me know for a fact that I do answer all the emails. Every last one of them. Believe it or not, I do. And I thank you for them. That's it. We're done. Until next time, this is James Strong saying adios.